Kitaria Fables is the new game from the developers of Cat's Quest 1 and 2, two games I absolutely love and adore. Those games were succinct and sharp to the point, hack and slash RPGs, thoroughly action based, and they knew what they wanted to do and gave you plenty of cat puns along the way. Kitaria Fables wants to advance the genre and try something slightly different by taking that hack and slash element of gameplay and mixing it with a traditional RPG setting, and then adding in some Stardew Valley farming on the side as well. Balancing those three elements together is tricky, and I wouldn't say that Kitaria Fables is successful entirely in doing that, but what it does do is give a really stilted and odd adventure that I think some people will enjoy, but it will also drive quite a lot of people up the wall. I've got a lot to say, I'm going to try and run through it as quick as I can, please bear with me. Kitaria Fables is completely playable in co-op. I only played it in single player mode, but it is available for complete co-op adventuring, which I think would up the fun slightly for the game itself. I came to this from the Cat's Quest background, expecting to have the same kind of feel of everything transfer over but into a 3D RPG world, and I was very much mistaken. The main thing that's carried over is the cat aesthetic and the hack and slash gameplay, where you need to make some attacks and then dodge out of the way of everything as you go along. Everything else feels completely different from the ground up, so I just want there to be a warning shot to anyone expecting Cat's Quest 3 but in a 3D world. This game sees you playing as a cat that is mute throughout the entire adventure, but does have like a little pink turnipy thing that will act as narrator for you to have dialogue scenes with back and forth. There's no voice acting, but it doesn't need it. It's got decent enough characters and a story, although it's all about, oh, let's stop the calamity from happening. Very hackneyed, but serviceable. The game itself, though, removes all of the cat puns, and it's trying to take itself a little bit more seriously, whilst also being relaxed at the same time, and I did miss the cat puns, I have to say. The whole game works on a day-night cycle, but you don't necessarily have to run to time on anything, it's just things occur in a day-night cycle. So during the day, shops are open where you can go and purchase goods and trade goods, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then when it comes to the night time, the enemies that are out and about and the wild creatures are a little bit more aggressive towards you, because sometimes they'll be quite docile and most of the time they'll just walk past you during the day, and it's up to you to initiate the battles. At night it's very much the other way. However, there are certain enemies that only come out at night, some only come out in the day, and some characters only appear on certain, like every other day or something like that. So quite often you'll need to time your actions so that you can, if you're looking at being efficient, hit certain locales at certain times of day. You've got sunset at 5 o'clock at night, then it's actually darkness and nighttime at 7 o'clock, so it gives you a nice visual warning that something's coming up if you aren't clock watching. And I do like the way how it graphically shows that over time. This is most crucial for when you're trying to find certain enemies to attack and kill and then collect what they've dropped, because you'll need to know whether or not they're a day or a night animal and where they live in the world. And the reason for this is that Kitaria Fables has no XP in the game whatsoever. Everything you do to build up your base character and their stats revolves around trading your items either harvested or collected from enemy drops in at shops that either deal with armour or weapons. And what you'll be doing is looking down the list of how you upgrade your weapons, seeing what items you need to collect for that, and then going out and farming those enemies again and again and again until you can reach that capacity. It's a weird way of doing things, and it sets Kitaria Fables, I think, off down a path of redundancy and repetitiveness, because it's a cumulative effect of lots of different, slightly awkward changes to the game that add to a cumulative effect for me, and I'll continue explaining this as I go. The key change here, though, is that instead of thinking, right, I need to battle enemies to grind, you need to find the right ones at the right time at the right location, and that can sometimes lead to a waiting game for you to be in the right time at the right place, especially when you're chasing stuff that occurs only at night. The The game itself does have a fast travel system that allows you to move around the world, but the world itself is quite small. There's only about 20 to 25 different locations. They are all about 4 to 5 screens large, and they're nicely detailed, but inside those will be the same couple of enemies that will repeat over and over again, and enemies don't replenish when you kill them, unless you leave the area and walk back in. So what you'll be doing is going to an area within the time zone, battling the enemies, clearing them, walking next door, walking back in, rinse, repeat, hoping that you do that before the time of day changes, and then you'll naff off to the next quest as you go along. And it feels clunky when you're doing that, and what starts off as a real good nice world to live in very quickly deteriorates into a bit of a back and forth fest where you get repetitively fatigued over seeing the same stuff over and over again. Adding to this is your inventory, which is way too small. Your inventory reminds me very much of, do you remember at the beginning of No Man's Sky when they were like, here's your inventory, but have the whole world? This feels quite similar in that there is so many different things that you can pick up, either through the seeds for your farming, the crops that you then grow for farming, trees cutting down, stone and gold and silver and copper that you're mining, then anything that you've collected from enemy drops, anything that you've collected from berry picking, anything that you've gone to the Mr. LBRY, the little sage man, and got your magic. It all adds up, and it's very quickly filling up your bag, which you can expand, but not by much. And then what you'll end up doing is housing little chests everywhere where you're just chucking stuff in because you don't want to lose it. The problem with this is that the chests are all very specific to their location, and there's no way of remembering or knowing unless you make a mental note of what's in where. They don't link up. It doesn't tell you that you've got some of this stuff stashed away in another box somewhere, and so you can quite easily lose track of the quests that you've got going on, what you need to collect for them, and where you've stashed it, and then you'll go off needlessly for another half an hour hacking and slashing some enemies thinking, oh god, not again. Again, it's that repetitive nature that just creeps into this game. Add to that the hack and slash nature of this game means that by design the actual fighting is repetitive. Now this was fine for Cat's Quest because it was a very high level, you were always going somewhere with that game because it was fast paced, the dungeons were small, and everything just kind of clicked. You didn't need to have to go back round repeating the same things again and again and again. But with Kitaria Fables you do. And so the lightness of this gameplay becomes really apparent very early on. And all you're doing is hitting a few times, rolling away. Now you do have the difference between going for swordplay or a bow and arrow. Both are viable and both work. So at least you've got some kind of change up of the gameplay there. But if you're wanting to switch weapons on the fly, you can't do it without accessing the gigantic menu and then equipping stuff, but the battles don't stop whilst you're in the menu, so you'll get pummeled to a crisp whilst you're being absolutely battered, trying to sort out your menu items. Again, in that clunky but small inventory space. One of the things that has been switched up for an improvement over Cat's Quest, though, is the magic. So with magic, you need to collect these soul fragments, which you can then create spheres with, and you can have earth, wind, fire, water, and you need to basically decide what ones you're going to create, and then you combine them together to create certain spells. There's more spells than what you ever had in Cat's Quest 1 or 2, and the trick with this is that you can only carry 4 at once, so you decide which ones work best for you. In an interesting twist, and I'm not sure if I like it or not, sometimes the ones that are the most powerful are also the ones that you struggle with to get much use out of, because they have like a really small influence area. So you have to decide what works best with your gameplay style and then run from there. For instance, it's no use having a wall of fire if you're a bow and arrow person sticking way away, because then you'll never get the enemy to walk through the wall of fire. But it costs more to create and make, so you need to kind of think off in advance about how you want to do that kind of magic element. The last element of the game that I'll be touching on is the farming, and I have to say it's okay, but it's very surface level deep. You do need to water the plants every day that it doesn't rain. Yes, you can go around and harvest stuff. I like the fact that you've got a sickle that you can equip that will make the job easier, and that all of your farming tools are upgradable. You can enjoy farming all day if you want to, but for me it felt a little bit like it was in the way of other things that are going on, and it all funnels down back into this: get the things together to upgrade your materials because there's no XP. And so that's where the weight of all of this kind of inventory comes from. And it's because whenever you upgrade something, it costs coins alongside all of the things that you gathered. So for me, the farming becomes the XP, because you need to make the farming, to make the crops, to sell them, to get the cash, to then do the upgrades. So it feels like it's just replaced one system that we all entirely understand and know with another system that's much more difficult to understand, and it takes longer to actually get your return on investment out of. Again, it feels like it's padding the game out over something that's quite small. I've been exceptionally critical about this game, but it's because somewhere in here there's some real seeds of goodness, and I feel like if there was some really good quality of life features that would improve the inventory, fast travel to locations that make sense, a menu that doesn't get stuck when you're trying to move between inventory and quest items. There's a lot here that could and should work if it all comes together, but it's all stilted in a way that is padding a runtime and focusing for me on the wrong things and then making them longer. So for me, Kitaria Fables is an almost but not quite. I appreciate their efforts. I do think that Cat's Quest 1 and 2 are absolutely 1 or 2 tiers above where this game currently is, but it's an interesting direction and I'm glad they had a go at trying it. Just be aware that this is designed to be a grind fest, but without the plethora of options to enable you to enjoy that grind fest in. A written review will be over on higherplanegames.com tomorrow. Until then, you guys take care and happy gaming. Bye for now. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplaynetwork. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.